You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome to Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan. Today we're going to look at the theories behind conspiracy theories, which seem to be proliferating in the United States in the wake of Donald Trump, and not for the right reasons either. That is, the reasons that he made us all paranoid to begin with. We are going to examine their history, origins, toxicity, and sometimes even their hilarity. Fittingly enough, my guest for today's program is the best-selling author and super smart clinical psychologist, as well as being a niece of He Who Shall Not Be Named. That guest is Mary Trump, who is just out with a new book titled The Reckoning: Our Nation's Trauma and Finding a Way to Heal. And there's a surrealism corner coming. I mean, this is a podcast about conspiracy theories after all. And of course, fighting words at the end of the program. But before we get into any of that, we need to go inside the headlines where the deep state, or the deep headlines, hide and lurk. The word conspiracy derives from the Latin con, meaning with or together, and spirere, meaning to breathe or whisper together. The Oxford English Dictionary defines conspiracy theory as, quote, the theory that an event occurs as a result of a conspiracy between interested parties, specifically a belief that some covert but influential agency, typically political in motivation and oppressive in intent, is responsible for an unexplained event. Period, close quote. This country is replete with them, and every president has had to deal with conspiracy theories. Andrew Jackson's administration, as only one example, was a veritable plum pudding of conspiracy theories, some of which were even partly true. One was that an assassination attempt at Jackson had been put in operation by the slave power, which had, according to the rumor, assassinated two other U.S. presidents, William Henry Harrison and Zachary Taylor. The slave power term was common currency in the North, where it was used to describe political influence wielded by the planter elite, which had an agenda to extend slavery to the territories and free states, and to destroy civil liberties and complete the formation of a nationwide ruling aristocracy based on a slave economy. Exaggerated, but not totally false. Meanwhile, of course, Southerners had their own such theories, blaming real or imagined slave revolts on plots by abolitionists and by other outside agitators. From the colonial era to the present, it's been a paranoid time in the United States, with conspiracy theories playing major roles, from the Indian Wars of the 17th century to the labor battles of the Gilded Age, from the American Revolution to the War on Terror. And right up till today, an NPR poll from December 20, 2020, found that the QAnon-fueled conspiracy theory that a group of Satan-worshipping elites ran a child sex ring and were trying to control our politics and media, it had 17% of the population in firm belief, while another 37% were not sure. But this is not just a U.S. or Western phenomenon, conspiracy thinking. Rather, it's a lamentable tendency in human nature that has surfaced regularly throughout history. Furthermore, while no research as yet has studied cultural differences in conspiracy belief, the hypotheses suggest that low versus high trust cultures express variation in the extent to which they experience uncertainty and fear. That is, conspiracy thinking. Conspiracy theories remain widespread and global. In rural Africa and Asia, common targets of such theories include powerful, evil people, social elites, other tribes, and Western societies as well. And conspirators are often accused of acting out their plans via sorcery or witchcraft, with modern technology sometimes named as a form of sorcery created with the goal of harming or controlling people. In China, one widespread conspiracy theory claims that a number of events, including the rise of Hitler, the 1997 Asian financial crisis, and climate change, were all planned by the Rothschild family. Today, once fringe theories with once marginal audiences have become commonplace, largely because of the internet and social media, and the amplification that both lend to such theories. And they've emerged as a cultural phenomenon. It's been said that we now live in a, quote, age of conspiracism, close quote. Such thinking correlates with anti-governmental orientations and a low sense of political agency, with conspiracy believers seeing threats to individual rights and feeling a personal paranoia that one's own voice or vote don't really matter. Societal crises situations play a large role in people's tendency to believe in conspiracy theories as an escalation of general anxiety or unease. Usually, it's the preferred style of minority movements and the less educated, although the educated elites have such theories now and then, too. Scholars have tracked spikes in letters to the editor of the New York Times and the Chicago Tribune between 1890 and 2010. They found correlations with major societal changes and feelings of powerlessness. For example, the first spike, shortly before 1900, was at the height of the Second Industrial Revolution, characterized by the rise of major companies, by swift technological progress, and by rapidly shifting power structures. The second spike occurred during the late 1940s and early 1950s, a period marking the beginning of the Cold War, a period that was rife with fears of communism. Conspiracy theories have also been closely tied historically to prejudice, and that is always an accompaniment. Witch hunts, wars, lynchings, genocide. They are strongly believed by terrorist attack perpetrators, such as Timothy McVeigh in the Oklahoma City bombing, and they have been deliberately propagated by Nazi Germany, by the Soviet Union, and other authoritarian and fascist states. Anti-Semitism is fueled in many parts of the world today by Jewish conspiracy theories. For example, that Jews worldwide are plotting to achieve global domination. Anti-Semitism was a major part of Hitler's speeches, blaming German defeat in World War I on a Jewish conspiracy. And Stalin, ostensibly his enemy, entertained similar theories. As early as medieval times, the European Jewish population was the target, blamed for setbacks during the Crusades or even for causing the Black Plague. Of course, women as witches were blamed for that, too. Denial of HIV/AIDS existence by the government of South Africa, motivated by conspiracy theories, that caused an estimated 330,000 deaths. Such theories constituted major obstacles to public health improvements, since people who are prey to such thinking are less likely to follow medical advice and more likely to use alternative medicine. Such avoidance of science in favor of pure mythology has been seen in resistance to water fluoridation, in fraudulent autism rumors, and, even now, in avoiding vaccines for otherwise totally preventable diseases. It's very difficult to penetrate a conspiracy theorist's mind with fact, or to highlight logical contradictions in such theories. Such acts can be counterproductive, especially when they're related to challenging the person's worldview or identity, and because conspiracy theories reinterpret disconfirming information as part of their narrative and absorb it. From witch burnings to anti-Semitism, from suspicion about the Illuminati and Freemasons, from the enduring belief in inexplicable conspiracy has increased people's feelings of powerlessness, while conspiratorial rhetoric has undermined democratic institutions and practices. It's an alarming truth that politically motivated conspiracy theories bring the same result as conspiracies themselves. That is, that there exists a small number of Americans who wield power over the future, power that may not account for the will of the majority. It does seem to eventually burn itself out, but waiting is a risk. Better education may well be the long-term, but only answer. It's time for our first break, but don't go away because there's lots coming up. And first in the queue, coming right up, is the Surrealism Corner. Subscribe to this program on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review. Follow us on Twitter at WMC Live, like our Facebook page at facebook.com/WMC Live, and visit us at WMCLive.com for more information about our show and our guests.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Conspiracy theories. In the Surrealism Corner, what more need I say? Well, you have to give them this. Conspiracy theorists are nothing if not inventive. Conspiracy theories range from the claim that Shakespeare never existed at all, but his name was a pseudonym for a variety of accomplished, well-educated, well-traveled writers and nobles, Edward de Vere, the 17th Earl of Oxford, or Christopher Marlowe, who, by the way, was never murdered in a tavern in 1593 after all, but was hustled away to France, thanks to his connections with the Queen's spymaster Walsingham. And while in France, Marlowe did what? He spent the next 2 decades writing under the pseudonym William Shakespeare. Sigmund Freud, Orson Welles, and even Mark Twain fell for that one. Here's another nice conspiracy theory. John Wilkes Booth was never really killed. After shooting Abraham Lincoln, he went on the lam and headed to Texas. Where else? Oh, and the assassination had been planned all along by Andrew Jackson to ensure his ascension to the presidency. All good, solid, nutty conspiracy nonsense. Just glancing over the copious listings available online, I encountered the following. Oliver Cromwell, Lord Protector of England, Ireland, and Scotland in the 1650s, was never exhumed so that he could be posthumously hanged. Never happened. Nero played his fiddle while Rome burned. Even Tacitus signed on to that one. Except that, you see, Nero was safe miles from the fire, and the fiddle, well, it hadn't yet been invented. But hey, we can't let minor details like that stop us. American history is rife with these little nasties, usually aimed at the government, like that the U.S. developed a submarine which was invisible through electrical field manipulation, and it could also time travel because it allegedly teleported to Norfolk, Virginia a few seconds after it had left. One of the conspiracy theorists who held this notion had already explored the so-called mysteries of the Bermuda Triangle. Now, one that does make my teeth grind is about Queen Elizabeth I, Elizabeth Tudor of England, who was actually, according to conspiracy theories, a man. The sound you hear is my teeth grinding. Because Elizabeth I ruled for so long, 1558 to 1603, and because she destroyed the Spanish Armada, and because she united her divided country in total peace, and she encouraged the arts and national industries and trades to totally flourish, it was of course assumed by some observers, including Dracula author Bram Stoker, to believe she was a man. She also wrote accomplished sonnets, was a consummate musician, a fine dancer, and a brilliant political strategist. All of which obviously meant that to be so brilliant, she would have had to be a male. Ugh. Then there's my special conspiracy theory favorite. Lewis Carroll, yes, the author of Alice in Wonderland and Alice Through the Looking Glass, Lewis Carroll was really the notorious serial killer, Jack the Ripper. I could go on and on and on and on, particularly since the U.S. is replete with such theories, like NASA faked the moon landing, the U.S. government was complicit in the assassination of John F. Kennedy, aliens from outer space have been having conventions in Area 51, and so forth, right on up straight through till the barrage of craziness endured by Hillary Rodham Clinton after conspiracy theories concocted an imaginary pizza parlor run by her in the back of a beauty salon in Washington, D.C., where children were being held prisoners for the purposes of sexual slavery by Hillary. This so-called harmless theory actually led a man packing a loaded rifle to invade the place, ready to kill. All of the above, however, must bow in obeisance to the ceaseless spew of conspiratorial thinking and rhetoric that has issued forth from Donald Trump and his followers in the last 5-6 years. It entered national prominence with his birther lies about President Obama. And then it escalated from there. Immigrants were filthy, diseased, and terrorists and smugglers. Asians released COVID on the world. Women just love to be grabbed by the... Well, you get the point. Entire nations were S-holes. What's more, he knew better than the generals, the diplomats, the medical experts, and he alone could fix it, whatever it was. We're left now standing, barely, in the ruins of his mythical deep state fantasy, and, of course, of his amazingly endurable, because propagated by the Republican Party, big lie. It's a Goebbels-size big lie that he won the last election. An alternate fact, as they called it, that the entire Republican Party is now picked up and just run with it. Now, that is both surreal and hideous makes me realize I'd rather stay with Lewis Carroll being Jack the Ripper, because that is at least pure, unadulterated whimsy. It's time for another break here at Women's Media Center Live, but I'm going to return in just a moment with my special guest, who is the perfect person to discuss PTSD and conspiracy theories, Mary Trump. The Women's Media Center, founded in 2005 by Jane Fonda, Gloria Steinem, and myself, is a progressive, nonpartisan, nonprofit organization working to make women visible and powerful in media. You can learn more about the WMC at womensmediacenter.com.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Mary Leah Trump is an American psychologist and author. A niece of Donald Trump, she has been highly critical of him and the rest of the Trump family. Her 2020 book about him and the family, Too Much and Never Enough: How My Family Created the World's Most Dangerous Man, sold nearly 1 million copies on the first day of its release alone. Her uncle sued to stop publication, but the case was dismissed. She earned a master's degree in English literature from Columbia University, and she holds a PhD in clinical psychology from the Derner Institute of Advanced Psychological Studies at Adelphi University. She worked at the Manhattan Psychiatric Center and contributed to the book Diagnosis Schizophrenia in 2002, and she has taught graduate courses in developmental psychology, trauma, and psychopathology. Here, again, back at Women's Media Center Live, is Mary Trump. Welcome back, Mary, to Women's Media Center Live. It's very good to have you back.
Robin, it's so great to be with you again. It's been far too long.
Well, yeah, as I told you before we started recording, which is that, you are hopelessly intelligent, and so it's really a very special treat when I have you on as a guest, because I can just relax and listen and glow in the listening. But you are out with a new book, following on the heels of the Trump book, and this one is, I think, even more important. This is called The Reckoning: Our Nation's Trauma and Finding a Way to Heal. And of course, you're a clinical psychologist as well as an English major, and I always feel I should get that in there for the sake of us English majors. And so you are uniquely qualified to discuss this. And this country, of course, has never had its Truth and Reconciliation conference or meeting or national campaign, because we've buried it again and again and again, all of this trauma that we put ourselves and people of color and women and old people and young people through. So talk about the book, and let's talk, once you've done an overall sort of view, talk about conspiracy theories and how we dent them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I think as those of us who are paying attention have begun to understand quite well, conspiracy theories may indeed be the end of us. So we do need to be paying attention to what's going on in that arena. But as for the book, you mentioned the fact that this country has never had a Truth and Reconciliation Commission,
right,
or its reckoning. And that's not where I started with this book. I was actually thinking about almost exclusively about COVID and the mental health fallout from COVID. So I started thinking about writing this book back in September, October 2020. Mm-hmm. And just think about what was going on. We were in the midst of these three crises. We were in our second wave of COVID. Right. At the time, I think 250,000 people had died, which is incredible considering it's now much more than that. We were dealing with the economic fallout from COVID, and we were in the middle of a political crisis, because I think it was pretty obvious that if Joe Biden didn't win in November, it would have been the end of American democracy, such as it is.
That's right. That's right.
So,
and even when he won, it was pretty close.
Well, that's the other. That's actually a really interesting thing to talk about too, because that's the result. Not the results weren't expected, but the fact that we're still in so much danger as a country, I think, was very, not just unexpected for a lot of people, but devastating. Yeah. Because many people believed, okay, Joe Biden is in office, Donald's gone.
Right. Been there, done there. Now I can relax.
We can relax. Yeah. No such thing. There's no relaxing here.
Right.
So anyway, I believed, as other people did, that we weren't going to understand just how serious the psychological impact of, at the time, it was only 6 months, but what would eventually be a year and a half of COVID, and the fear and the isolation and the suspicion that attached to it, plus, of course, the mass death and the fact that, there's been no accountability. What was that going to look like? And I also believe that it wasn't going to be obvious until we started to emerge. We weren't going to know how it affected each of us. Were we going to have PTSD? Were we going to have anxiety disorders or depression or substance abuse issues?
Right.
And I felt that, that we needed to anticipate that. We need to, in whatever way, be prepared for that. But as I thought it through, I realized that I couldn't really write about that effectively because, I can't write 300 million different individual treatment plans. And because the experiences would be so individual and across such a broad spectrum of things. So I took a step back and I thought, what would maybe be more useful is to try to figure out how this country got to this place where we are literally on the brink of the failure of the American experiment.
Exactly.
We're literally on the brink of autocracy. How did we become so vulnerable to weak, cruel, incompetent leaders like Donald?
Yep.
How did so many of us become susceptible to a Republican Party that is now a party of fascism?
Yeah, and a kind of fascist cult.
And a cult, of course. Yeah, a death cult, actually.
That's right.
So in order to do that, I went back, as one does,
to the source.
As a psychologist, story is everything, right?
Yep.
That's how we figure what's going on in the present.
Right.
And I teased out two major threads, starting at the beginning. One is that no powerful white men have ever been held accountable, and that includes Robert E. Lee.
Right.
And white supremacy has not only not ever been atoned for, it's never been dealt with.
Right.
So it continues to be operative in our politics. It continues to be, it is now a major platform of one of our two major political parties.
Acknowledged as such.
It's terrifying, and it seems to be a disease that's spread.
Yeah.
There's a reason that 12 million more people, which I say to my horror, voted for Donald in 2020 than did in 2016. It's just an astonishing statistic, considering, in 2016, I was willing to give at least some people the benefit of the doubt because they'd been sold a bill of goods.
Yeah.
They only knew him from The Apprentice. They bought into the myth that had been perpetuated by the media for decades that he was successful. They swallowed the whole thing about his being an outsider and somebody who's going to stir things up. But there was no such excuse in 2020. They also like the hatred and the cruelty, as long as it's aimed at the right, quote unquote, right people.
Yeah.
And that's where we are right now.
Okay, well, my day is made. I feel so cheered up.
Bring the sunshine.
Yeah. Oh, Mary. Okay. All right. My way of dealing with this kind of despair, and it is a despair, and many of our sort of people, as they put it, are sharing that despair. And my way of bucking them up and bucking myself up each day is to engage, because if you're doing something about it, you feel a little bit better. Not a whole lot, because there's despair lurking along those pathways as well, but you are doing something. I think we do stand a chance, and I think that our species is so bizarre in that it always comes up with things at the not at the last, but the very last possible moment. We are remarkably adaptable, but we're very late on the uptake. So, so if I engage, that's one way of feeling much better, and not, and not relaxing into, oh, well, now Joe's in power, so we can all, sit back. But I'm not a clinical psychologist, and I I don't know a way in to this kind of thinking. I don't know a way. I know a way into when they buy into the system. I know when they buy into hatred. I know hatred feels great. I know, putting other people down makes you feel terrific about yourself if that's all you have to feel about, if that's terrific about. We know these things, but I can't find a way in to penetrate conspiracy thought. I'm not asking you to solve America, although if you could, that would be really terrific, Mary. But
because then I could go on vacation or something.
Yeah, that's not allowed, not permitted.
Nope. No. Not at all.
I know there's no magic wand, but what is there? Is in the tools that psychologists can offer?
Well, okay, so there's a lot there, and part of the problem is that this has been turning America into what it is now, especially on the right, has been a decades-long project.
Right. And
keeping people afraid makes it easier to get them angry because anger feels better than fear.
Right.
And makes them more susceptible
right.
to hating the other and then engaging in conspiracy theories. So, the problem is that this has been happening over many, many years. So there is not going to be a quick solution to that, although there are plenty of long-term solutions. In the short term, my suggestion, and, people before the 2020 election asked me, what do you say to people who are going to vote for Donald this time around? And my advice was ignore them because it's a waste of time. If they're going to vote for him after all of this, there's nothing you can say.
Okay.
So I would say the same thing. Okay. Let's focus on ourselves. Remember, first of all, there are many, many more of us.
That's right.
Than there are of them.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Which is great.
Yeah.
Just in terms of, the way you handle yourself day to day, remember, because there are more of us than there are of them, we can tap out if we need to. We don't need to be glued to MSNBC or Twitter 24 hours a day and just, feel enraged and helpless. If you need a break, take a break. Or, and just not engage. But if that doesn't seem possible, then do something proactive that doesn't require your paying attention. Like, I can go out and register voters and have no idea what's going on in American politics. But at least I'm doing this incredibly productive thing.
Interesting.
Right?
Interesting.
Which will energize me and energize other people.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that. And finally, we need to figure out how to get Democratic leadership to take the problem seriously. For reasons I don't begin to understand, it seems anyway like most Democratic leaders don't understand the threat we're facing.
I know.
They're acting like it's business as usual. They're acting like there's such a thing, not just that bipartisanship exists, but that it's something to be desired.
I know.
You cannot make common cause with a party of fascists without losing something crucial.
Yeah.
It just gives them more power and you give up your power. The Democrats need to act like they're the majority because they are. Right. They need to play hardball and they need to lock the Republicans out. We have at least 10 Republican senators who are seditionists and they're being allowed to participate in governing our country. That's inexcusable.
I know.
So
awful,
if we can figure out a way to get that message to people in leadership, then, that would go a long way as well. Because there's nothing quite as demoralizing as being very clear about the dangers we face and feeling like the people you entrusted with power aren't doing what needs to be done.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. I mean, I think a great many of them are following the Biden lead of, being a gentleman, amelioration, being nice, bragging about working across the aisle, et cetera, et cetera. And he's been getting a weeny bit cranky lately, which gives me great hope, but not enough hope, not enough hope. And so I'm very glad that the Progressive Caucus is holding its ground, but there is this oh, excuse me, I didn't mean to interrupt you, tone that Biden sometimes adopts that makes me crazy, because it's terminally nice, and we can't afford that really now.
Well, terminally nice, but also potentially terminally institutionalist, and that's another problem. I mean, I think he's hopefully overcoming that better than people like Merrick Garland, because we're at this point where if you're an institutionalist in the traditional sense of the word, then institutions matter more to you than American democracy. So then what is the point of you? Right? The other thing to point out here is that although Pramila Jayapal and the Progressive Caucus have done a masterful job of holding their ground, the truth of the matter is, so have almost all of the other Democrats. We're talking about 96% unity among congressional Democrats, plus the endorsement of the very moderate Democratic president, Joe Biden. So this is just another instance in which we're shown in a very powerful, scary way that America is not a democracy. When you're the party in power and 96% of your caucus wants something done, but 4% is preventing it, in what universe is that democracy? That's the problem. That people like Joe Manchin, who represents, he's one of two people representing like 1% of the American population, and Kirsten Sinema, who is like a character out of a really bad comic book who has nothing but contempt for her constituents.
I know.
Why is that? Shouldn't it be majority rules? Okay. 48 Democrats want this thing to pass. 2 don't. Guess what? It's going to pass. It's mind-blowing to me how much I think people didn't understand the ways in which the American government is actually anti-democratic.
And completely
like filibuster
and slanted toward minority rule. I mean, between the Electoral College and and the filibuster and even you could say the Senate with just 2 from each state. That there's the framers would be spinning in their graves. I mean, they wanted to protect minority rights, but they did not want minority rule. They made it very, very clear.
They were also dealing with a situation in which, generally speaking, the early states had about the same population, whereas now Wyoming has 500,000 people, has 2 senators. California has, 40 million people? It has 2 senators.
That's right. The whole system, the problem is that this becomes, when people are looking for granular solutions, which are not really available, they're not. The problem is you have to engage the long haul.
Well, I think that, again, it's making sure that the Republicans who can do something about it understand that. And realizing that if there were a level playing field, no Republican would ever win a nationwide election again.
That's right.
Which, of course, is why they're so terrified and fighting so hard.
Damn right. They know it.
Of course they know it. And that's why the gerrymandering and the voter suppression bills that are winding their way through every single state in the union.
Unashamedly.
For 2022.
Without any shame.
Oh, of course. No, but this is the thing. One of the very few things that Donald did, that he taught the Republicans, and that in a way was a good thing, because it exposed them for who they are. Because I don't think that Donald is the Republican Party. The Republican Party has been this way all along.
Yeah, I agree. He
exposed them for who they are.
He lifted the rock.
He gave them permission.
Yep.
And he gave them permission, and he made them realize that if you just keep pushing the envelope and pushing the envelope and pushing the envelope and don't care what people think, you can get away with anything.
That's right.
And that's exactly the page out of the playbook they've taken and are following.
Some days I have my fantasies that if he were not around, will this transfer to another candidate? I think probably at this point it might, because it's no longer that tied. It's very tied to him, but it's no longer that tied to him and to the cult of personality. But then on the other hand, I don't know.
I honestly don't know that it would make that, but it wouldn't change the Republican Party at all. They've tasted blood and they like it.
Yeah.
They like that they've had permission to be their worst selves. They love it. They love the violence.
Yeah.
So when people say, "Oh, the Republicans are afraid of Donald," I'm like, are you kidding me? They love it. They love all of this.
Yeah.
So their problem, which is awesome for the rest of us, is that there is nobody else at the top of the Republican Party who has that thing Donald has, which is, shockingly enough, charisma.
Yep.
He actually does have. It doesn't appeal to me. Doesn't appeal to you. I don't even understand it, but it appeals to tens of millions of Americans, right?
Yeah, I sure don't understand it either, but I know
so the
what you
good
mean.
news is, Cotton, Hawley, Cruz, and Donald's children have none of that.
Yeah.
They also don't have, 40 years of myth-making by the American media. They don't have this false, this facade of being this brilliantly successful businessman. They don't have, the at least ostensible wealth.
Yeah.
So I can't think of anybody else who appeals
in quite the same way.
That segment. Exactly. And the other thing, too, is if you think Donald is endorsing anybody, you're sadly mistaken.
Aren't
he will
they?
never play.
Aren't they? Yeah. What is wrong with them? What is their problem? They should. It's the nose on their faces. It's
they're
just
fascists.
Yeah. If you
because they don't think it matters, right? They think that if they can just win in 2022, it's game over. Democrats will never win anything again, and they're not wrong.
No, they're not wrong. They're not wrong. Oh, Mary, Mary, Mary. Oh, God. Well, it's an important book. It points the right directions. It's going to take a lot of work to get there, and people don't want to work right now. They want to crawl into bed and pull the covers over their head, but that's not the way out, because when you pull the covers down from your head, it's all still there, and it's worse. So it's a matter of tremendous hope and affirmation that we can see a way out, even if it's difficult for us to take it. But people are taking it. I tell myself, all of last summer was street action, and a hell of a lot of the winter. And people are fighting back now in terms of, I will too wear a mask, you idiot. What's wrong with you that you're not? So there is change. It's just incremental, gradual, specific. And that's what we've got to make bigger and more visible. I don't know another way.
I completely agree.
I don't know another way. And you keep writing books, because we need them. We really do need them. This is a wonderful and quite brilliant book called The Reckoning: Our Nation's Trauma and Finding a Way to Heal. It reeks of American history. Those of you who've been tuning into the show and the specials that we've done. We're doing a series on Native American attempted genocide. We've done a series on racism. We're dancing as fast as we can, and also trying to keep it upbeat, which is an interesting dance step. But I think that it is ultimately upbeat, because if it's not, then there's nothing worth doing of any sort anyway. So we might as well be upbeat. What the hell? So
there is hope. We need to remember that there is still hope, and that's it. That's what we need. To energize us.
This from the sole sane survivor of the Trump family. So if she says there's hope, you better believe it. Oh, Mary, bless your dear heart. I hope to meet you soon, and so that we can talk in person over coffee or drink or something. Maybe at this point a stiff bourbon. I don't know. But take care and continue writing, please, okay?
Thank you, Robin. It's such an honor. I love speaking with you, and I really hope we do get to meet soon.
It's time for our final pause here, but I will return directly with those fighting words.
For the smartest talk about news, politics, sex, books, religion, race, and more, it's Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan. Audacious, witty, provocative, informative, and fun. It's Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan. Talk radio with a brain.
Conspiracy. Breathing together. Now, why is that a fighting word? We've been here before. Here is a particular timely example. In the late 1790s, Jedediah Morse, a congregational minister in Charleston, Massachusetts, and the author of geography textbooks, drew national attention for suggesting that a secret organization called the Bavarian Illuminati was at work, quote, to root out and abolish Christianity and overturn all civil government, close quote. It was a pretty volatile era, what with the U.S. Constitution newly ratified and the French Revolution gushing blood in Europe. Morse became certain that atheists and infidels were behind the secular Jacobin movement in France that had tried to rid that nation of organized religion. This was all hardly a hush-hush plot, you know. It was the Enlightenment, for crying out loud. One group, the Illuminati, advocated for Enlightenment ideals: reason, philanthropy, secular government, self-rule. They were anti-clerical, anti-superstition, and anti-royal. Many of the framers of our Constitution were aware of their existence because of the overlap of Enlightenment ideas, though the founders were not members. The Freemasons are thought to be an Illuminati offshoot, but actually it was the other way around. And the real Illuminati went out of existence in about 20 years, having settled for wearing ceremonial robes, chanting, using somewhat silly code names, and becoming the grist for more bad novels and conspiracy theories than I can count. But Morse believed that the Illuminati group was pursuing the same agenda in the new United States, and that it was working closely with Thomas Jefferson and with his party, the Democratic Republicans, who were political rivals of the Federalists. Morse, a Federalist himself, stoked the fears of evangelicals, concerned with the moral character of the young republic. In a 1798 sermon, he described the Illuminati's ominous attempts to, quote, abjure Christianity, justify suicide by declaring death an eternal sleep, advocate sensual pleasures agreeable to Epicurean philosophy, decry marriage, and advocate promiscuous intercourse among the sexes. Close quote. The presence of the Illuminati in America, Morse claimed, should cause Christians to tremble for the safety of their political as well as their religious ark. In another sermon, Morse printed his list of Illuminati members working on their sinister schemes in his Christian nation. Soon Timothy Dwight, president of Yale College, expressed similar alarm. In a 4th of July discourse, he quoted from Revelation 16 to caution his readers about unclean teachers educating innocents in unclean doctrines. Such teachers were spreading throughout the world to unite mankind against God. They took their cues from previous opponents of Protestant America, the Jesuits, Voltaire, and the Masons. No doubt racism helped. Such propaganda needed it. Jefferson's well-known 40-year-long relationship with Sally Hemings, an enslaved woman on his plantation and the mother of 6 of his children, doubtless, stories about Sally fed into Morse's fevered fantasies of lustful demonic forces. Dwight and Morse reminded their readers that if this dangerous society succeeded, the children of evangelicals would be forced to read the work of deists, or become concubines of a society that treated chastity as a prejudice, adultery as a virtue, and marriage as a farce. The theory and the gossip spread far and wide. Elias Boudinot, a former president of the Continental Congress, and John Jay, a Federalist statesman, bought into this conspiracy theory. Eventually, the accusations were unable to withstand the weight of evidence, however, so they stopped talking about the Illuminati. Evangelical Federalists went on obsessing about the preservation of a nation that was not threatened, but they overplayed their hand, and the Federalist Party faded from the political landscape. Now, I cite this particular example because it's so familiar, and because, like all conspiracy theories, sooner or later it merges with prejudice, hatred of women, hatred of people of color, hatred of the other. Prejudice that itself hides fear. Oh, such fear. Conspiracy theories, like the belief systems and religions they so often are dedicated to defending, must impose meaning, impose it, their own meaning, on existence itself. It breaks your heart. This thought of people, frantic with terror, whirling in a maelstrom of their own making, trying to find a reason, a meaning, a spell, a prayer, a pattern that will tell them what to do and why and how it all works. It makes me think of a story I heard long ago. A child came to an old wise woman, crying. "Why are you crying?" asked the old woman. "Because," the child said, "I can't find the key to the universe anywhere, not anywhere." "Ah," said the old woman. "Well, that's because there is no key to the universe, not anywhere." "Not anywhere?" "Not anywhere. But that's no reason to worry. You see, my dear child, the universe is not locked." Those are my fighting words. Add yours on Twitter, and remember to tag us at WMC Live and use the hashtag Fighting Words. And that's our show for this week. You can follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and now Instagram at The Robin Morgan, and you can check out my blog at robinmorgan.net and find my latest book of poems, Dark Matter, and my brand new novel, Parallax, wherever books are sold. Opinions expressed on this program do not necessarily represent the Women's Media Center. Here's the family for Women's Media Center Live. Executive producer as well as founding and sustaining sponsor, Regina K. Scully. WMC president and co-executive producer of this program, Julie Burton. I'm Robin Morgan, your producer and host. Thank you for being with us. Join us again next time on Women's Media Center Live.